I'm Brandi Kruse. Coming up today on Undivided, when it comes to violent illegal aliens committing crimes in our communities, the local media thinks the less you know, the better. Plus, Democrats shut down debate on parental rights in their latest power play. And my somewhat unpopular take, apparently it's unpopular, although I think it should be popular, on the man from Maryland, as the media calls him, who was deported to El Salvador. That and much more coming up today on Undivided. Remember, you can support our show for just $5 a month by signing up at undividedpod.com. Hello, and welcome to Undivided. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for your commitment to giving common sense a comeback. Oh, I missed you, bunch of weirdos. I missed you quite a bit. Do I look tanner? Not really, but that's okay. I got a little sun. Sorry to leave you on a vacation, although we do appreciate our generous bosses, you, the subscribers, allowing us to go on vacation during such a busy time in politics in Washington state and beyond. So a lot has happened. We, of course, have a busy show today, but I did want to remind you, if you've not checked it out, last week while we were gone, enjoying the sun, we dropped our special report we've been working on. It's called Sanctuary, where we take you behind the scenes with ICE in one of the bluest states of America, Sanctuary State of Washington. Here's a clip for those of you that missed it.
Okay, so we're in the greater Seattle area today, and we're going to be going out with a joint HSI and DEA team.
It's the middle of the afternoon behind a grocery store in Burien, Washington, just south of Seattle. ICE and DEA agents have intel about a drug deal that's about to happen. Their main suspect is an illegal alien.
I'm thinking this is him, probably. Here, the surveillance team was on him and said that he was pulling into Fred Meyer, so looks like he's pulling up. Our team's now rolling in.
Scenes like this have played out all over Washington state with increased frequency since President Donald Trump was sworn in for a second term. Illegal aliens accused of child rape, drug trafficking, kidnapping, robbery, strangulation, domestic violence, pulled off the streets of Washington by federal immigration agents, proving even in a so-called sanctuary state, there is no sanctuary under President Trump for violent criminals who are in the U.S. illegally.
Getting this person out of the country where they can't do this anymore might be the most effective way of dealing with it.
Matthew Murphy is the acting special agent in charge for Homeland Security investigations in Seattle.
You know, I have a lot of friends and colleagues around the country that operate in different places where they're, and it's very different, where they're fully integrated with state and local police to do these types of operations, and it definitely makes their job a bit easier. We're doing work that I think benefits the community. I think hopefully most people are in favor of getting fentanyl and getting methamphetamine and arresting these types of targets. So, I think hopefully the people will be relieved to see that we're arresting someone that's doing this kind of stuff in the community.
So check out our full special report, Sanctuary. It is up now across all of our platforms, even those platforms that are not subscription platforms. We dropped it last week. We've also released a bonus interview with Congressman Adam Smith, who was featured in the special report, but we released the full unedited interview with him where we go back and forth. He's a Democratic congressman who represents the suburbs east of Seattle. And I enjoyed the interview. That's why I wanted to release it in full. Clearly he and I disagree on a lot of stuff related to immigration, but I think to hear him acknowledge, of course the border situation is better under Trump. And to also talk about, with nuance, some of the aspects of sanctuary policies that are not working. I think it was good to hear a Democrat say that there are some things that should be no-brainers, like running deportation flights out of the King County Regional Airport when you've got criminal rapists and murderers who are going to send back to their home countries. And he also said he's open to having conversations about one of the other key issues at the center of the sanctuary state debate, and that is this issue with ICE detainers. So there's a story relevant to, I think, our special report today that I want to talk about that puts this issue into even greater focus. I mean, anyone with common sense should understand how ridiculous it is for local jurisdictions not to honor an ICE detainer when you have a known criminal, sometimes convicted criminals, who ICE wants to get out of our country because they're not here legally. Why would everyone not be on board with that? So I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But a clip from our special report with Congressman Michael Baumgartner paints, and it makes a pretty good point about this issue, I think, of detainers and the state sanctuary laws not allowing local jails to honor ICE detainers. Here's a clip with the congressman.
We know right now there are hardened illegal immigrant gang members and fentanyl dealers inside of Washington state jails. And if the system were working properly, when ICE or the federal immigration authorities would issue a detainer saying, we know this bad guy is in your jail, please hold them so we can come and get them out of the country. What's going on is Nick Brown is saying to sheriffs like Dale Wagner in Adams County, you can't talk to the federal immigration officials. And so what that means, instead of being able to pick that guy up in jail and take care of him, that person is then released into the community. And so when ICE wants to go find him, they now have to get 8 or 10 guys in body armor and weapons drawn. And it's very dangerous for the law enforcement officers. It's dangerous for the community. It's dangerous for the individual. And it's not great for the immigrant community either, because it means when ICE comes through, more people are going to get swept up that are lower priorities.
And I think that's a really good point at the end that I don't hear enough Republicans making. If you want to appeal to the, this is so sad, don't sweep people up or whatever it is, if you're saying, we're not going to detain this guy for you to come here, ICE, we're going to release him into the community, and then ICE has to send a bunch of agents out into the community, you don't think that they're going to arrest that person and they're going to have other violent criminal illegal aliens around them that are then be like, ICE, well, you're here too, come along. So that's something that progressives and Democrats should actually be on board with, is like, hey, this actually this puts ICE out into the communities that they might not otherwise be in. So yeah, let's hand over the rapist, the murderer, the drug trafficker, and the domestic abuser or whatever it is, and let's make sure ICE isn't out in the communities if we can all help it. So we ran this special report last week, and then as we were gone, this insane story pops up out of Washington state that epitomizes why these sanctuary policies have to be rolled back. Look, even if it's not all the way. And I get it that there's like this, they're going to go and just stop brown-looking people. They're going to stop people who look Mexican, and they're going to say, show me your papers. None of us want that. None of us want a police force like that, to live in a police state like that. But there's a lot of gray area between that and helping the feds get murderers and rapists out of our communities. So this from the post-millennial. And let me say, you wouldn't even know about this if not for the post-millennial evil conservative media. Only ones will dive into stories like this. So the headline, ICE confirms suspects accused of kidnapping and torturing Seattle area woman are illegal immigrants with alleged ties to Tren de Aragua. This from Katie Davis Court, who did some great reporting on this. Kevin Daniel Sanabria Ojeda, 24 years old, and Alexander Moses Gutierrez, 25, both citizens of Venezuela, have been booked into the King County Jail on charges of robbery, kidnapping, and attempted murder. The defendants have been accused of kidnapping a woman who's 58 years old outside of her apartment complex in Burien on January 21st. The victim was allegedly robbed and tortured before being driven to a mountain pass 90 miles away, where she was shot and left for dead in the snow, according to charging documents. Miraculously, the victim survived. ICE spokesperson David Yost told the Post-Millennial in his statement on Thursday that the agency has lodged 2 immigration detainers with the King County Jail in Seattle. He said both suspects are citizens of Venezuela who have alleged ties to Tren de Aragua, the gang, violent street gang. So that happens, right? Anyone with a brain. Okay, they're accused of kidnapping, torturing, shooting and leaving for dead a 58-year-old woman. And now ICE has lodged these detainers against them, even though they know it's fruitless, right? Just to say, hey, if this guy makes bail, if for any reason these 2 guys are going to get released from the King County Jail, let us know. Because we don't want illegal aliens who can flee back to their home country so they can avoid prosecution to just be released out onto the streets. It is so stupid, the idea that we wouldn't assist the federal government with that, right? But Of course, we're not going to, because the sanctuary policies are black and white. Ari Hoffman said King County won't honor ICE detainers for Tren de Aragua gang members that allegedly kidnapped, tortured, and left a Burundian woman for dead because of state and county sanctuary laws. A King County spokesperson told him, under Washington state law and King County code, King County jails may not release a person to federal immigration authorities absent a criminal warrant issued by a federal U.S. district court judge or magistrate. How absolutely asinine is that? So, and at that point, who are you protecting? Who are you protecting besides the kidnappers, torturers, attempted murderers? Are you protecting the other citizens of King County who are now left at the mercy of these people who have no tie to the community? They're not here legally, so they can flee and go back to their home jurisdictions. And why wouldn't they? I would. If I was in another country and I did something horrific like that, which of course I never would, but then I make bail and I get out, you think I'm sticking around to face Lady Justice? Of course not. So you just let them out onto the streets. It's wild stuff. Right, left, and center, anyone with a head on their shoulders should understand that's ridiculous. So the sanctuary policies are bad enough. But why don't you think there's this overwhelming pushback over this, right? Why aren't people like in the streets over stuff like this? Why aren't people demanding that elected leaders in our state change such a clearly wrong-headed policy? It's the media's fault. Because the media shields information like what the post-millennial put in there from the populace at large that isn't as informed as you are, that isn't as eager and interested in independent thought and looking and searching out other sources of information. The people who, put the same Democratic politicians back in office, and they might read their Sunday edition of the Seattle Times, and they might turn on the evening news for 5 minutes or watch the news in the morning for traffic and weather. They don't know this is happening to this extent. And it's the media's, more than the politicians. It's the media's fault, because the media is supposed to be the barrier. The media is supposed to be the accountability arm. And they're just not. Had you read the Seattle Times about the attack on this woman left for dead, you would have no idea, if that was your primary source of information, which it is for a lot of people in the Seattle area, you would have no idea that the suspects are in the country illegally, or that they have ties to a violent Venezuelan street gang. The headline from the Seattle Times, 3 men left Burundian woman for dead on side of I-90, prosecutors say. And this is a lengthy article from the Seattle Times. Not one mention that they're here illegally, which ICE offered up. They know. The Seattle Times knows. Not one mention the suspects are here illegally. Not one mention of the alleged tie to a violent street gang. Why on earth would you continue to go to the Seattle Times for information when they are intentionally keeping information from you? And to protect who? Who are they protecting? Not you. If they were doing their duty to protect the public, they would let you know, hey, here's what's going on. Here's how this impacts you. The sanctuary laws, they let people like this just go poof back out on the streets and try to disappear again. I blame the media way more than I blame politicians for this situation. If the media across the board were honest and transparent about what was going on, I don't believe we'd be a sanctuary state. Because even, I think, progressive Democrats would be demanding that law change, because it's just so wrongheaded. It's just so obviously asinine. And you get, there was this other example. I mean, the hits just keep coming, where if the general public knew about truly how sanctuary laws, they frame it as, we're not hindering, we're just not going to help. Oh, you can still do your federal immigration enforcement. We can't stop you from doing that. We're just not going to help. And they make it sound like it's so inconsequential. Like, well, we don't have enough agents to help or officers to help anyway, so we're just not helping. No, by not helping, you are hindering. By having sanctuary laws, you are making it more difficult to get these people off our streets and out of our country. Here's another example of this. ICE Seattle had put this out a few days ago. Rafael Garcia Lopez, 26, a citizen of Mexico, was arrested by ICE in Mount Vernon. He has previously been removed from the U.S. with criminal convictions in Skagit County for assault with sexual motivation, and rape of a child. Okay, so he'd already been in the U.S., had a conviction for child rape, was deported, and is back in Washington State where ICE picked him up. Katie Davis Court, great work again. She's been all over this immigration stuff. Highly recommend you go follow her and support her work at Katie Davis Court on X. She said this illegal immigrant was deported from the country in 2024 after spending time in jail for raping a child. The state of Washington issued Rafael Garcia Lopez a state driver's license after he illegally returned to the United States. So this guy rapes a child, an illegal here from Mexico, comes into our state, in our communities, and rapes a child. ICE manages to, even though nobody honors any sort of holds, he spends time in jail, ICE deports him from the country. He comes back illegally right away. And because of our sanctuary laws and the fact that our state databases and systems won't even let bureaucrats know whether someone is illegal, and because you don't have to prove citizenship to get a driver's license in the state of Washington, the child rapist who came back into our country just like that gets a driver's license. And he gets to drive and live and work amongst all of you like nothing ever happened. And thank God for the men and women of ICE who picked his ass back up and are sending him back to Mexico. In spite of sanctuary policies. In spite of sanctuary policies. Anyone who supports sanctuary policies supports that child rapist and supports his right to be here and to get a driver's license. Anyone who supports sanctuary policies supports helping to secure the release of those two individuals who took a woman from her home, beat her within an inch of her life, dropped her off at the pass, and shot her and left her for dead. Because you can't have it both ways. The way our sanctuary laws are currently structured protect those people. If you want to reevaluate and you want to be more nuanced and say, okay, here's where it crosses the line. We don't want the Seattle Police Department out there on traffic stops or State Patrol on traffic stops saying, oh, how brown is your skin? Oh, okay, can I see your papers to make sure you're an American? Nobody wants that. Nobody's going to do that. But if you feel like you need some sort of sanctuary policies to protect against that happening, by all means. This is not that. This is protecting child rapists, murderers, kidnappers, robbers, domestic abusers who have no right to be in this country in the first place, and removing them from this country and from this state is a public good. This is insane. And I don't know how many stories like this there have to be for us to wake up to this fact, but if the post-millennial, if Katie Davis Court, if Ari Hoffman, if Jonathan Cho, evil conservative media, I'll have more on that on tomorrow's show. Well, pre-tease, long tease. If we're the only ones who are going to tell you about this, then nothing's going to change. Because as much as I hate the legacy media, and I think they're failing in their duties and intentionally keeping information from you, they collectively reach more households in this state than we do. And until they're willing to do their jobs and tell the truth, then nothing is going to change. And we're going to be stuck with these backward policies that are making our communities less safe. All right, so I was like a little guilty when we left last week because it was just, the timing was good. I mean, Daryl was going on his honeymoon. We needed a freaking vacation. And so we're like, okay. And I felt like, God, we shouldn't go. And even Nicole asked me when I said the vacation date, Brandi, you know that's the end of the session, right? You know that's like the final few weeks of the session. And I was like, yeah, I mean, we'll be back for the last week of the session. And I felt super guilty because I was like, there's all this budget stuff up in the air and all this stuff is going to happen while we're gone. No.
Nothing.
No. Here we are a week later. We're in the last week of the session, by the way. This is the last week of the legislative session. We're gone for a whole week and virtually nothing happens when it comes to figuring out how they're going to close the massive budget deficit. Because, of course, you know, the Democrats, they came out, they proposed all these massive new tax increases. Bob Ferguson came back and said, I'm not signing a wealth tax. You can't use a wealth tax to balance the budget because I don't even know if it'll hold up in court. Sends them back to the drawing board. They did come out last week while we were gone and put forth this freaking laundry list of new tax proposals. And Bob Ferguson comes out and he even says, well, that's too many taxes too. So we've made no progress over the last week, quite frankly. There was a great protest while we were gone. And I wish I had been able to be part of it. I think last Tuesday or Wednesday they had this. Our friends at Let's Go Washington and Future 42, there was like 300 people on a weekday who came down to the state capitol to protest against all these tax proposals, specifically the property tax proposal, which I think is the one that has the most widespread impact on working class Washingtonians. So I was so happy to see that. But again, and I want to just jump ahead, Nicole, if you can, to these Bob Ferguson quotes. So they come out, they are like, he already told us, don't rely so much on new taxes, or at least not the wealth tax. So let's go back to the drawing board and let's make up that money elsewhere, as opposed to cutting anything. Because like cutting, not increasing spending is just, can't do that. So they push out this laundry list of some new, some old, and just increased tax proposals. And Bob Ferguson comes back again. He says, at a time, and I don't like that he blames Trump. I think that's a scapegoaty thing, but I appreciate that he's still pressing them to stop with the tax hungriness. He says, at a time of great economic uncertainty and assaults by the Trump administration on core state services for working families, raising $12 billion in taxes is unsustainable, too risky, and fails to adequately prepare Washington state for the crisis that looms ahead. So I appreciate him saying that. He went on to say, we need a balanced approach using a reasonable amount of progressive revenue and adopting solutions to reduce our spending. We will continue to work together to produce a budget that supports a strong economy and the people of Washington. And look, I don't see them working together. That's the thing, is like legislative Democrats are just doing their own thing. And I don't know how 1 week left in the session we can be in this position where we really have no clue what the budget is going to look like. Now, when Bob Ferguson says we need a balanced approach using a reasonable amount of progressive revenue, he's saying there's going to be new taxes. Revenues tax. He's saying there's going to be new taxes. And I know that at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, he'll sign off on tax increases. He just doesn't want to look like the bad guy in all of it. But when he says we'll continue to work together to produce a budget that supports a strong economy, legislative Democrats aren't interested in working with anyone. They don't want to work with anyone. They've been having behind closed doors budget negotiations where they're not interested in Republican input. And frankly, once Bob Ferguson already slapped him on the wrist and sent him back to the drawing board, why would they come out and propose another $12 billion in new taxes without checking with him first? It's almost like they want to put him on the spot. And it's like, can't you guys get together, figure this out, and then only come to us when you have something you can agree on? It's real, I don't know if it's incompetence, stubbornness, or what it is, but it's getting exhausting, frankly. And meanwhile, all of us are sitting here like, how are you going to screw us? Because we know that ultimately we're the ones who are going to get screwed over in all of this. And then also I'll say about Bob Ferguson. Look, I hate, inside it hates me to be like, I'm relying on Bob Ferguson to be the sane one. Because I don't think he's sane. You know how I feel about Bob Ferguson. I don't trust his motivations. I've said I think he's playing sort of hardball. He'll ultimately sign off on new taxes, and he'll sort of be able to blame legislative Democrats. But at this point, he's all we got. I mean, I put out a poll on my social media accounts yesterday being like, whose side are you on in the budget debate? And I gave you two options, legislative Democrats or Bob Ferguson. And people are like, well, Brandi, there's more options than that. I'm on the side of Republicans. Republicans, sorry, they mean nothing in this debate. They have no power. They have no influence. They don't have enough votes to dictate anything. So those really are the two sides. Legislative Democrats, who, would tax it to high heaven if Bob would sign it. And then there's Bob Ferguson. So the only side I can take at this point is Bob Ferguson's. As much as it pains me. It's the only side I can take. There's only two sides in this. And if Republicans want to say, then they have to win more elections. That's just the bottom line. But then Bob comes out. In the midst of all this, where I'm like, yay, Bob Ferguson, no wasted money, everything's great. And he announces a DEI conference. Here's a clip.
I want to start this message by thanking each and every one of you for your very hard work during some challenging times that we're going through as a state. And the purpose of this video is to share information about the 2025 Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Empowerment Conference for all Washington State employees. So this is a save the date message to all of you to save the dates of June 4th and 5th and June 11th and 12th. The theme for this year's conference is embedding meaningful access and inclusion in everything. And I think it's fair to say it is more important than ever to reaffirm our commitment as a state to these principles. These values improve our government, make us more responsive to the people, and ensure that we consider the impacts of policies and decisions on every Washingtonian, not just those who can access government or afford lobbyists.
Embedding DEI in everything. So here he is acting reasonable, and then he announces, in the midst of this crackdown on DEI by the Trump administration, a 2-day DEI conference where we can learn how to embed DEI in everything Washington state government does. How much is that costing us? Nicole reached out to the governor's office this morning to ask them, 2-day conference, surely this is going to cost us something. In the midst of a budget crisis, do you really think this is the best use of taxpayer funds? So still running throughout Bob Ferguson's veins is an obsession with ideology and also marijuana. Well, he looked high as a kite in that video. Did you notice that? I saw people on social media being like, I don't think he's actually, for the record, I don't think he's high as a kite. But he looked incredibly stoned.
High on power.
I guess. I mean, I'm sure his office would say he's been working around the clock. He's just really sleepy.
That's what it is.
I don't think, for the record, Bob Ferguson smokes weed. He just doesn't seem like the type. But he looked like he'd been with the Mexican chest confetti. That's my favorite name for it.
I like it. That's
yes,
good.
the devil's lettuce. Partaking, if you will. And it's legal by all means. It's fine. I'm fine with that.
Whatever, it's legal.
So yeah, on one hand, we got to be budget hawks. On the other hand, 2-day DEI conference. Great idea, Bob. I'll also say, I saw a lot of conservatives on social media praising or giving credit to the Seattle Times editorial board for coming out in recent days and having some op-eds encouraging fiscal restraint and sort of telling legislative Democrats to stop it with all the new taxes. There were 2 in particular, one from the editorial board, balance state budget responsibly, not ideologically, and then David Horsey, their cartoonist, had one where he was making fun of House Speaker Lori Jenkins. It was like a little makeshift game show thing where she doesn't know what budget restraint means. I'm not giving the Seattle Times editorial board any credit. First of all, they're out here like, use budget restraint. You guys overspent. You knew that you were overspending and you continue to grow the size of government and taxes. The Seattle Times editorial board endorsed all these people over and over and over and over again. They endorsed them every single time they were up for election because God forbid, they support any sort of conservative. And then they want to act surprised that the people who have shown time and time again that they want to increase taxes, that they have no interest in fiscal restraint. Now they're surprised that these people are pushing new taxes down our throats and don't want to balance the budget in a responsible manner. So no, the Seattle Times editorial board gets no credit from us. Absolutely not. So you want to show that you care about fiscal restraint. Stop endorsing the people who are responsible for the runaway spending. Give me a break. All right, coming up next, the Democrats shut down, used a new rule that they changed after 130-something years, and shut down debate on probably the worst possible thing they could have shut down debate on. We'll discuss that coming up next. First, are you thinking about selling your home? Man, on Sundays with Subscribers, we talked to a friend of ours who moved out of Washington to open a gun shop in Idaho, and he said that a lot of his new neighbors are from Washington State. Now, I don't want you to leave, but if you're thinking about it, reach out to our friend Wes Jones at sellwithwes.com, and he can help you with your home sale. He said May is going to be a great time of the year to sell your home. And right now, it still is a seller's market. I mean, there is still low inventory out there compared to where it's been in the past, and buyer demand is high. So if your home hits the market, it's priced right. That's a very strategic thing, something Wes can also help you out with. And it's prepared for sale, and your marketing of it is on point. Those are the homes that are being snapped up, scooped up real quick for top dollar. So reach out to our friend Wes Jones, sellwithwes.com, sellwithwes.com. Sellers are facing less competition right now, so it is an advantageous time to list. Ask Wes to give you a free market analysis so you can figure out how much your home might be worth or where he'd consider listing it. And then also ask him about his Listing Boost concierge service, which is a pretty cool feature. Sellwithwes.com, sellwithwes.com, a better way to sell your home. All right, the segment is brought to you in partnership with our friends over at Future 42. Turn your frustration into action at future42.org. Make sure you sign up for their newsletter to be alerted to opportunities to do just that in your communities. So I have talked about the attack on democracy from Washington state Democrats. As much as they want to paint conservatives and Republicans as the threat to democracy, or even Donald Trump or whatever it is, they have shown time and time again that they are very eager to consolidate their power by thwarting the will of voters. And we have seen no better example than what they did during the initiatives last year. You had a number of initiatives that were supported each by around 500,000 Washingtonians. I think it was something like 1.8 million unique voters in our state who signed on to at least one of those initiatives to send them to the voters on issues that really were common sense. And you saw people signing those initiatives right, left, and center. In fact, there were more Democrats and independents who signed those initiatives than there were Republicans. So there were broad support for those initiatives. And one of them in particular was the Parental Bill of Rights, which came about, really because parents were frustrated with all these new laws that were hurting their ability to know what's happening with their kids' lives. It's like, first it was the medical decisions, where they were expanding every single year, it seemed, the types of medical care that kids could get without parental consent and without even parental involvement of any kind. Like, there are some things your 13-year-old can go do in the state of Washington, and you as a parent, you got to pay for it. Your insurance is going to cover it, but you have no right to know what your kid went to the doctor for. Like, that's crazy stuff. And for any parent, again, of any political ideology, that's concerning. And then it was, going into the schools where you could have kids who were going to school and seeing therapists or, getting connected with medical care for a variety of things, and parents would be completely kept in the dark. And so the Parental Bill of Rights initiative was wildly popular. And for that reason, Democrats in Olympia last year just decided, let's pass this initiative via the legislature, because then, rather than letting it go to voters, we can turn around more quickly and unravel it. And that, of course, is what they're doing this legislative session. They signed it. And then they immediately started to attack it. And they immediately came back this session and are rewriting it where it's a shadow of of the Parental Bill of Rights that was passed. So, that's been frustrating in and of itself to watch. And now it's fallen victim to the latest effort from Democrats to shut out dissent. So you'll recall a couple months ago on the show, maybe a month and a half or so ago, Democrats changed a rule that has been on the books in the Washington state legislature for more than 100 years. And what that rule said is, while debate is happening on the floor, it would take a supermajority to end debate. So that means that even though, Republicans are in the minority, it would take a supermajority to stop them from standing up, from speaking, from making their dissent known, from introducing and debating at length amendments to Democratic bills. And so that's a healthy part of democracy, right? To have some disagreement, to have public debate, to have dissent over things. So Democrats decided that they were going to change that rule, and no longer does it take a supermajority vote to end debate. It just takes a simple majority, which, of course, who has a simple majority? Democrats do. And so at the time this happened, I think a lot of people were shocked that Democrats would do this, that they would care so little to hear any dissenting opinions, that they would change 100-plus-year-old rule and say, at any time we want, we'll use our majority and we'll just end debate. And at the time they assured us, we'll only do that in extreme circumstances. It's probably not something that we're going to use very much. Well, they did use it, and they decided to use it on the bill to upend the Parental Bill of Rights. So if you were watching, of course, parental rights passed in the Senate, and then it was debated in the House while we were gone. And yeah, the debate was lengthy. The debate went on for some time. Republicans were trying to introduce amendments that would strengthen the bill because they know they're not going to be able to defeat it. They don't have the votes to do that. So all they can do is put forth common sense amendments and say, hey, how about this? How about this? And then debate the merits of it on the floor. So apparently Democrats were tired of listening to Republicans. Democrats were tired of hearing dissent. They were tired of hearing disagreement. And they utilized this new tool to just halt debate. Here's how I want to play the video of how it looked on the floor, because all this jargon in Olympia, you might have seen this and not really understood what was going on, but essentially there was an amendment that had been introduced by Republican State Representative Jim Walsh that would have taken away the emergency clause on this, and that was sort of when Democrats just decided they had enough. So here's what it sounded like when they shut down debate on the floor.
The member from the 49th District, Representative Stonier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I demand the previous question.
Do 1/6 of the members demand the previous question? Members who demand the previous question, please stand and remain standing. Members, please be seated. At least 1/6 of the members have demanded the previous question. The ayes have it. The previous question has been ordered.
Yeah, that's what it looks like and sounds like when one party is drunk on power. Doesn't sound like much and look like much when you watch it and think, what the heck is going on? That's them shutting down debate over an amendment that they didn't want to hear any more about, and then fast-tracking the bill to upend parental rights for a vote. And it's insane when you think about it, because here's a bill that exists to override the will of voters. Here's a bill that Democrats have put forth to dismantle a voter initiative less than a year after it became law. And even though they're doing that, an initiative signed by Democratic parents, Republican parents, independent parents, they aren't even willing to sit there and listen to the concerns people have with the bill. So they just end debate. And there were a couple other speeches allowed after this. One of them was Representative Jeremy Default. He's a Republican representing the 15th District. And I give him credit because I think he knew he was in violation of the floor rules and he was going to get gavelled out of control for what he was saying. But I think in that moment, he felt the need to stand up for democracy, to stand up for parents, to stand up for voters who signed on to this initiative.
This chamber has existed for over 130 years, but for the first time in its history a few moments ago, debate was silenced. Debate was censored.
Please speak to the policy. Please proceed.
This bill led to the censorship of representatives of the people of Washington State who strongly supported the initiative and who opposed this bill. The people continue to be obstructed by this chamber by not voting on.
Please do not impugn members.
Yeah. So gavelled over and over again, continues to try to shout what he was saying about the disrespect to parents in Washington State as they cut his microphone. Good for him. So I saw after this happened, there were a few news stories on it, and House Speaker Lori Jenkins was quoted in the Olympian. Give me a break. Cannot believe this quote. So asked basically, why would you shut down debate on something that really has to do with a voter initiative and a controversial thing that a lot of parents have a stake in? She said, we had over 4 hours of debate on the House floor on SB 5181, much of which was both duplicative and degrading towards transgender and other marginalized children. Washingtonians deserve a healthy debate, not a procedural delay meant to kill bills with majority support. So she is just saying that we didn't like what the other side had to say. So we've just decided 4 hours is long enough. We're going to end debate. And to say that things that were said were degrading towards transgender and other marginalized communities, they were not. You know, there was an amendment, I think, just to protect girls' sports. But you can't want to protect girls' sports from the inclusion of biological men because that makes you a transphobe. So anything they don't like, any pushback whatsoever. You know, one of the aspects of the Parental Bill of Rights was to say, hey, if my kid goes to school and they decide to identify as a different gender or a different name, I as a parent have a right to know. That doesn't seem very controversial to me. Like, you should be able to know if your child is going to school and everyone else, including teachers, are calling your child by a different name and referring to them as a different gender. And so Republicans sort of pushing back against that protection for kids, well, that's transphobic too. Because that's what they do. They name call and they label when they can't justify what they're doing. So in the eyes of House Speaker Lori Jenkins, Republicans were being transphobic. They were just being redundant, and we didn't need to hear anything else they had to say because this bill has majority support. So saying we deserve a healthy debate, not a procedural delay meant to kill bills with majority support. Well, anything you put forth has majority support because you're in the majority. You have all the power in the world. You control the House, you control the Senate, you control the governor's office, you control the courts. And you can't tolerate a couple hours of the other side of people who represent millions of Washingtonians. Even though they're in the minority, they represent millions of Washingtonians, and in this case, millions of parents. And you can't tolerate and be gracious enough for a couple hours to sit there and listen to the concerns of their constituents being shared by their elected leaders. It's absolutely disappointing. And just one more example of why one-party rule is incredibly dangerous. That segment was brought to you in partnership with our friends over at Future 42. Turn your frustration into action at future42.org. Make sure you sign up for their newsletter to be alerted to opportunities to do just that. All right, coming up next, WSU staff. Cougs, I would never expect this. UW, maybe. WSU, the home of the Cougs. People beating up a Trump supporter. I'm aghast by it. Some exceptional reporting from our friend Jonathan Cho. We'll have that coming up. First, I have encouraged you guys to take the First Mark Challenge. FirstMarkInsurance.com. FirstMarkInsurance.com. Why? It's free. Why else? You could save money. This is really a no-brainer. I say it all the time. And I know some of you give in slowly and say, well, I heard, I got a renewal on my insurance. My rates are going up. Brandi's been telling me about First Mark Insurance for years now, so I'm going to listen to her and I'm going to do it. And then you're like, Brandi, why did I wait so long? That's what I'm wondering too. Why wait so long? Because there's really only two outcomes. Either First Mark comes back to you and says, hey, great news, we can get you the insurance you need at a lower rate. Or they'll come back to you and say, you know what, you've got the best insurance that you can get and you've got a pretty good rate and I'd stick with that. And at the end of the day, you don't lose anything and you walk away just more informed. Or you could be one of those people who First Mark save thousands of dollars a year. We've heard from so many Undivided viewers and listeners who are saving big bucks and they're what they say is always the same. I wish I had done that sooner. I mean, thousands of dollars a year for the same coverage that they had previously. So FirstMarkInsurance.com, FirstMarkInsurance.com. The very best part is they work for you. And of course, the First Mark Challenge is free. You never pay First Mark Insurance anything for their services. So I think that's pretty cool. All right, let's get to our segment, Unbelievable, which takes us to the Palouse. All right, I was following this story closely while we were gone. Not that it surprises me per se, but it really feels like something that would happen at UW, not at WSU. And I am, of course, I've married into Cougardom. Cougardom? Cougardom, yes. So Jonathan Cho, and I actually knew he was going out there. He said, I got this great story. I'm heading to Pullman. Basically, a student was assaulted by staff at WSU wearing a Trump hat. I said, no way. I was thinking to myself, that sounds too horrible to be true, or too good to be true, depending on how you look at it. But it was true. Jonathan had the video evidence to prove it, and arrests have been made in this case. So I just want to play you a couple parts of Jonathan's story just to set this up.
After a long day at work, the WSU junior says he got ambushed and jumped by Patrick Mahoney and Gerald Hoff.
Patrick, ripped the hat off my head.
For wearing this bright red Trump cap.
He said to me, go get it, bitch, or punched me a bunch of times on the back.
Sonny says they unleashed a vicious beatdown, all caught on surveillance cameras right in front of the Coug, a popular campus bar packed with students.
Gerald also kicked me also a bunch of times too. Patrick, he grabbed my chest, slammed it on the concrete as I was falling.
He tried to defend himself.
So I had to go throw my food at his face.
But Sonny says 2 against 1 was just unfair.
And I was like, what the hell just happened?
And the melee left him with multiple scrapes and bruises.
Because of this, yeah.
Pullman police eventually found the pair nearby within hours of the chaos.
I've seen this guy campus before. Okay. I know he's like right-wing dude.
Mahoney and Hoff pretty much admitted to the allegations.
I grabbed his hat, threw it, and I said, go get it. We did grab him and bring him to the ground.
But tried to downplay the incident.
I didn't hit him. I don't think I did something illegal, right?
It's unwanted touching.
It's unwanted touching. I don't know what that is, right?
In fact, Mahoney tried to victim blame.
He wanted to fight. He got what was coming to him.
The officers didn't buy that story and arrested them on the spot.
You have the right to an attorney if you cannot afford one.
They're now facing 4th-degree misdemeanor assault charges.
Glorious. Love it. I mean, the fact that, cops are there interviewing their surveillance video, they're totally downplaying what they did. And so sanctimonious, too. I've seen this guy, he's a right-wing so-and-so, as if that would justify what you did. It's just wild. So who are these two faculty members, Patrick and Gerald? Let's continue with Cho's story.
Mahoney is a WSU graduate student and instructor, teaching a freshman-level political science class.
Gosh.
By all accounts, Mahoney is a notorious far-left activist.
Of course, I'm going to think you are beyond insane.
Who hates conservative values and is a regular at pro-Hamas protests in the city.
Almost 30,000 Gazan civilians have been killed.
Recently, he was part of a group pressuring the Pullman City Council to pass a resolution calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. But that went nowhere.
To support the revolution, support the resolution.
Workers everywhere are rising up.
Sanity says Mahoney has strong ties to the Democratic Socialists of America, progressive pro-labor groups, and is someone who publicly touts his admiration for the Communist Party. Look at the hammer and sickle pin he's wearing in this official school photo.
Mahoney's goal is to turn this country into a communist dictatorship or a communist authoritarian system.
I give him a hit to be like, yeah, don't with this anymore.
This violent incident happened in late February, and the school temporarily suspended Mahoney from classes and teaching duties. But Sanity is speaking up now since he's hearing his attacker could be reinstated and doesn't want that to happen.
He really shouldn't be teaching here, in my opinion, because, if you can't tolerate different opinions, then what's the point?
Over a hat. Dude had a hammer and sickle pin in his official WSU photo, and he's teaching a freshman level political science class. That's the guy, the communist who's teaching the future minds of America. And we wonder why some of these college kids are leaving college so messed up. So as Jonathan said there, this happened months ago. And the individual who was assaulted is now wanting to come forward and tell his story, because when he talked to Jonathan Cho at the time this was taped, he was of the belief that this one guy was maybe going to get his job back. So I really think this is where public attention and shaming comes in, because we now know that both of the faculty members who were involved in that incident and have been charged by police have now lost their jobs, which is the right outcome. But again, had it gone under the radar without any sort of attention, absolutely wouldn't have been any consequences for them. This is from WSU's VP of Marketing and Communications. After an investigation conducted by the City of Pullman's Police Department and in accordance with WSU policies, Patrick Mahoney's employment has been terminated. The second individual involved was a graduate student serving as a teaching assistant. He was not a Washington State University professor. The person has been relieved, however, of all teaching responsibilities, as he should. If you beat someone up over a hat, good God. The statement went on to say, in compliance with federal privacy laws, no further details regarding the matter will be disclosed. Of course not. WSU remains committed to fostering a safe and supportive learning environment for all students. We take every complaint and concern seriously and will continue to address such matters with the utmost priority. Now, I think that second half is BS. I give a lot of credit to Pullman Police, though. They did an interview with Cho for his story. And if you watch, I had to watch the full body cam interaction with Mahoney. And the officers did a great job, both when they were talking to him on the streets and then after he was in custody, basically telling him, dude, what's wrong with you? Like, you don't have a right to do that. And it was like trying to explain to a 3-year-old. And actually, one of the officers used an analogy of like, you learn this in kindergarten. Don't touch other people. Like, keep your hands to yourself. I mean, he's talking to this guy like he's 5, which he should. And trying to get across to him why what he did was a crime. It was like this guy didn't grasp the fact that you can't just rip a hat off someone's head and assault them in the street because you don't like their politics. Just wild stuff. So I'm glad that the one guy will not be have any teaching responsibilities, and that Mahoney's employment has been terminated with WSU. They don't need to be anywhere near the future minds of America. But just wild stuff. I mean, over a hat. It makes me want to wear a Trump hat around. I mean, I'm not like, rah, rah, Donald Trump #1 fan. But now it makes me want to wear a Trump hat around just to trigger people. Just to trigger people, because it's like, I was thinking about this weekend, that your life must be going so well. You have so few problems in your life. Talk about privilege. You have so few problems in your life that you have the time and energy to lose your mind over someone else who you don't even know, perfect strangers' political beliefs. It's the epitome of, like, I always say, white privilege. You have white privilege if you can spend that much time and energy on stuff like that, or protesting at a Tesla store. God, good God, give me a break. So great reporting from Cho. I'm sure that's not the last that we'll hear of that. All right, can we do a double dose of unbelievable today since we've been gone? Cue it. All right, so activist judges strike again. And this goes back to what we just talked about, which is voters have no power. The initiative process has been rendered completely useless. Anytime an initiative is put through that Democrats don't like, it just goes away. They'll overturn it in the legislature, they'll overturn it in the courts, whatever it is. And it's not just at the state level, it's also at the city level as well. So in the city of Spokane, we had actually talked about this the last election. Voters there decided to pass a ban on certain aspects of public camping, trying to crack down on all the crazy, out of control homeless encampments. And this one was particularly reasonable. And there was overwhelming support in Spokane for this because it was like, hey, you can't have a homeless encampment next to where kids play. Gee, controversial stuff, right? Controversial stuff. Well, according to Washington's Supreme Court, it is very controversial indeed. So this is from the Center Square. Washington Supreme Court strikes down camping ban backed by 75% of Spokane voters. The law made it illegal to camp within 1,000 feet of a school, park, or daycare. The state's highest court agreed to take up the lawsuit in June before the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Martin v. Boise, allowing SPD to enforce Proposition 1. SPD, Spokane PD. Let's see. Stuckert and Julie Garcia, executive director of Jules Helping Hands, argued that Proposition 1 criminalizes homelessness. So after voters passed this initiative, overwhelmingly, 75%, they said, well, that just criminalizes homelessness. Goes on to say the defendants claim that Proposition 1 exceeds the scope of the initiative process. State law requires initiatives to propose new laws. So they said that Proposition 1 was administrative rather than legislative. Essentially, Proposition 1 replaced the city's existing policy tied to the Martin v. Boise decision. So I just don't know what they mean by that. I mean, administrative rather than legislative? I mean, they're trying to change the law. So I don't know why voters wouldn't have the ability to do that. And I think one of the frustrating things is that these initiatives always get to this point and go to the voters, and then on the back end, oh, well, that initiative wasn't correct, or that initiative was unconstitutional, or that initiative wasn't written correctly. Why do we not have a process by which an initiative is approved, it's constitutional, it's all vetted out, and then you have people vote on it? Instead, you have people vote on things that you then get in front of activist judges and overturn. It's like, what's the point of it anyway? Let's see. So one of the, Nicole, and you put this in here, was this the deciding justice?
Yes, this is the one that issued in
the opinion, right? So Justice Cheryl Gordon McLeod is the one who issued the opinion on this, and we just felt like we wanted to put in what her background is, because it just seems like the background of someone who would make a decision like this. She also serves as the court's liaison to the Washington State Bar's Council on Public Defense. She's a longtime member of the court's Rules Committee, responsible for rules such as rules targeting race discrimination and jury selection, governing courts through Washington. She also speaks regularly at legal and community events on topics ranging from the importance of independent judges to current noteworthy cases. It says, where's her thing, Nicole, on the race and
it's right there. She co-chairs the court's Gender and Justice Commission.
Oh, God. Where is that? She co-chairs the court's Gender and Justice Commission. Great. These are the people who are on our state's high court. Gender and justice, and people who think that not letting homeless individuals camp next to where kids play is criminalizing homelessness.
I feel like these judges are part of too many groups like this. Why can't you just get in there and look at the law as the law instead of having all of these biases coming in from these groups that you are taking part of or co-chairing or whatever it is? Why I just think this is so obvious that this shouldn't be a thing where they have all these groups that they're like hoping to represent.
Well, and it's just like you have, as voters, you don't think the law is correct. You want to change the law. The initiative process is really the only thing at your disposal. You pass it with 75% of the vote, and then you have some activist judges say, nope, can't do that.
Right.
So what's the point, right?
As administrative as they were saying, a law already exists, so you're just specifying something within the law. So let's invalidate the whole thing, which doesn't make any sense.
So maybe they have to go back and change it in a different way, but it's just 75% of people, if they want something, they should be able to get it. If 75% of voters want something, they should be able to get it.
And I mean, it's such common sense. Like, if homeless people around a playground and a daycare, like, why is this controversial? Can we just move you down the street? Like, it's so stupid. It's just ridiculous.
It's asinine. All right. Coming up next, my maybe unpopular opinion on this debate in Maryland about the guy deported to El Salvador. First, I've talked about my success on the Eastside Weight Loss Clinic program. I'm down like 45 pounds now. I'm doing pretty good. And honestly, I got back from vacation. I only gained a pound on vacation. That's pretty good.
Nice work.
Yeah, I was like, how do I dare get on the scale after vacation and fish tacos and stuff? And I'm like, yeah, I got steps in. I only gained a pound.
Good
and
work.
you know what? I just feel like after Eastside Weight Loss Clinic, I just think that it's been 2 years now since I lost the majority of that weight. I lost 30 pounds in my first 2 months on the program. And for me, like, I might go up a little bit here and there, but I'm always able to use what I learned on the Eastside Weight Loss Clinic program just to bring myself back in check, which I think is a skill set that I didn't have on any other, fad diet, crash diet I've ever done. And Eastside Weight Loss Clinic isn't easy. The first 2 months are really difficult. You have to stick to what they tell you to do for 60 days. But after that, maintenance, I'll tell you, it's pretty easy. You just learn some healthier habits, portion control, what to eat in the right combinations, etc. So for people who aren't interested in like a fad diet, pills, injections, or whatever it is, highly recommend reaching out to Eastside Weight Loss Clinic. Just do a free 15-minute consultation with Dr. Ryan Coogan and his team and see if the program's right for you. It's not right for every person. Like I said, if you don't think you can follow 60 days of a very kind of stringent weight loss plan that they have for you, might not be for you. But I've heard from so many Undivided viewers and listeners who've had fantastic results and have kept the weight off. So eastsideweightlossclinic.com, eastsideweightlossclinic.com. Okay, so there's this whole debate going around. First of all, can we talk about the fact that the media keeps calling this dude a Maryland man? Maryland man. Maryland man.
Dad.
In what universe? I saw Sean, well, who's the big Fox guy? Not Bill O'Reilly. Why can I not think of his name?
Sean Hannity?
Yeah, Sean Hannity. He did a great segment on this, where he had this montage of all the media calling him a Maryland man, this like probably MS-13 gang member from El Salvador, who's in the country illegally. If I went into Canada illegally and I hurt someone, do you think the Canadian news would say, Vancouver woman?
Well,
no, they'd be like, American woman. In what context would they call you, if I'm in Vancouver, BC?
Right.
And I go up there and I commit a crime and I'm there illegally. You think they'd call me, Vancouver woman?
No, that's ridiculous. And
It's so crazy.
As is the Seattle Times calling the Venezuelan ties to the gangs. They called him a Seattle man.
Yeah, Seattle man. No, he's a Venezuelan gang member. It's just crazy. So, of course, there's been this controversy over some of the people who were deported to this max facility in El Salvador, and one individual in particular, Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia. He's been held down there for over a month, and his case was the subject of legal wranglings, and they say that he needs to come back because he was wrongly deported and shouldn't have been deported when he was and the way he was to this particular jail. So now this Senator Chris Van Hollen, who's a senator from Maryland, so I guess he represents this Maryland man, he goes all the way down to El Salvador and meets with them and has this whole sad sob story about it or whatever it is. And the White House is basically saying, we're not bringing this guy back. We don't care who says what court says what, we're not bringing this dude back. And they did a fixed version, they called it, of the New York Times headline. Instead of Senator meets with wrongly deported Maryland man in El Salvador, it says, Senator meets with deported MS-13 illegal alien in El Salvador who's never coming back. I was like, oh my God. So first, my opinion on this. I really just think, because one of the things I don't get, and what the left seems to believe and what the media seems to believe, is that he's going to get to come back and be with his family here again? No, he's still an illegal alien. He still was in the United States illegally. I feel like they have this fantasy universe where they think that he'll come back from this prison and everything will go away. No, he'll just get deported again. But he'll get deported in whatever way is better due process than the way before. He's never just going to be allowed to go back to his life in Maryland. You guys do get that, right? Media, CNN, MSNBC, you do get that, right? Because I don't think they understand that. Now, I do believe in this particular case, all the White House should do, and I know people are going to disagree with me, bring him back in ICE custody, immediately put him back in the ICE detention center, and immediately deport him again. Because it'll take I don't know how long it's going to take, but he'll never get out of custody. He's never going to be out of custody. Bring him in and be like, now he's going back. Are you happy? And I get it that if you give it in this, maybe you have to give it in other instances, but it seems like there's a lot of obsession over this particular case. But at the end of the day, he's here illegally. So he's still totally cool to be deported back to El Salvador. So I just am of the opinion that at this point, just bring him back in custody, never let him out of custody, and then do it again. And maybe we can all move on. I don't know if the media will let us move on, so maybe an unpopular opinion. And then here's the thing that really gets me. So Donald Trump put out this picture of this guy's hand, his hand tats, right? And it says, this is the hand of the man that Democrats feel should be brought back to the United States because he is such a fine and innocent person. And, you know, they're denying that he's a MS-13 gang member, although Donald Trump has this picture of these tattoos on his fingers. And there's a skull and a cross and a smiley face and what looks like a marijuana leaf or something. And in this picture that was clearly given to Donald Trump by law enforcement, it has MS-13 that's put above it, right? So this whole controversy has confused me all weekend because I guess I couldn't believe that the objection to this picture was as stupid as it was. And I was like, am I missing something? But no. So the internet says that this picture is photoshopped. You know why they say it's photoshopped? Because of the MS-13 placed above each of the symbols that clearly is meant to denote what those particular tattoos mean. Mm-hmm. And the left says, oh my God, Trump photoed it. He doesn't have MS-13. The M, the S, the 1, and the 3 are photoshopped. Yeah, no shit. They were put over it so people would know what the tattoos mean. Anytime you've seen any sort of picture of a gang member who's arrested that's got tattoos, they always put, here's what it means. Because all the tattoos, it doesn't say like, hello, I am a gang member and I belong to MS-13. No, there's symbols for these things. I couldn't believe that that's actually why people were arguing that the image was photoshopped. I was like, maybe they're saying the skull and all that stuff is photoshopped or something. No, they were trying to convince us that Donald Trump and the federal government knowingly photoshopped MS-13 in an effort to convince us that his knuckles actually said MS-13. That's how dumb this whole debate has gotten. It's out of control. Let's see. Oh, and I'll just say, I don't agree with this either. And it's so embarrassing for Democrats. Like, you're going to El Salvador to meet with an illegal alien, alleged wife beater, alleged MS-13 gang member. And that's how you're hoping to get, like, sympathy with him and the mother of a woman who was murdered by an illegal alien is like, why aren't Democrats showing my family as much sympathy as they're showing this dude in a prison in El Salvador who is accused of beating his wife and being a member of a violent street gang? So it's just an odd way for Democrats to try to win over voters. It's strange. And guess who paid for his trip there? You did.
Who did pay for this trip?
This was an officially cleared, congressional trip, cleared on a bipartisan basis. Yes, like every other trip.
Insane. All right, one more thing on Donald Trump. Nicole, you're the religious one of the two of us. Hello, Nicole.
Hello.
Could join us for a second. You're the religious one of the two of us.
Okay, I'll take it.
Does this Trump post bother you?
I'm just not bothered by these things. I understand why it does you because it's a distraction, but there were also quotes from him saying that religion brings people together, and I do believe that sense of community and being held accountable for your actions is what kind of brings us together and what we've kind of lost in this country. But this was kind of silly.
Can't he just say attack the radical left lunatics and then do the Easter post separate? The man can't help himself.
He can't.
And I just see him there like, or dictating to someone. Okay, I'll read it. Okay. I don't know if I'll read the whole thing. But it's like, dude, it's Easter. Let it be Easter. And then put it in a separate post. He says, Happy Easter to all, including the radical left lunatics who are fighting and scheming so hard to bring murderers, drug lords, dangerous prisoners, and mentally insane MS-13 gang members and wife beaters back to our country. Happy Easter also to the weak and ineffective judges and law enforcement officials. Like, I do find him funny, but at the same time,
not wrong.
Dude, just say Happy Easter and save the other. And it's a picture of him when the White House put it out. They put a picture of him in that creepy life-size rabbit. The whole thing is weird. So I did this in our daily subscriber show poll. I asked you guys about this, which I'll get to in a moment. However, Donald Trump's not the only ones using Easter and the religious holiday of Easter to make a political point. Former Governor Jay Inslee, who just will not go away, did essentially the same thing. He said, pretty sure that Jesus of Nazareth would never admit a soul was committed to hell by mistake and then do nothing to fix the error. On this Easter, let us recognize one more difference between the Son of God and the son of Fred Trump. So, okay.
He really doesn't like Fred.
He really, oh, Jay Inslee, go away. But it's, isn't it virtually the same thing? Like, they're both using Easter to attack their political enemies.
Yep.
Can we just not?
Silly.
Can we
Don't
not?
do it.
I asked you guys in our daily subscriber show poll whether tweets like that from the president bother you or not. I'm very curious. Sometimes you guys surprise me. So I don't know what I'm going to get from you on some days. I love you all, regardless. 59% saying yes, it bothers them. So pretty split. 59%, 41. Park, I appreciate the effort and policies he brings to the office, but his decorum in such a position should reflect the importance of that office. Legacy Media is now reporting that stock markets dropped sharply today based on his inappropriate remarks. Okay, I don't think that the stocks dropped because he dissed somebody on Easter. That's funny. Bill Chase, sometimes I think leave them alone so maybe the rest of us will get a break from them. Are you talking about the tweets? Yeah. Let's see. Rachel, yes, it does as much as I see leftists calling people like Governor Abbott Hot Wheels. Yeah, same thing. Like, why are we calling a governor in a wheelchair Hot Wheels? I don't like it, but it's seemingly par for the course in politics these days. Problem is the left only calls it out when Trump does it, and that is what bothers me the most. Yeah, it's the hypocrisy. But the only way that you can express disgust when the left does it, the only way you could honestly, genuinely do it is if you do it when the right does it. And it's all about, to me, moral hypocrisy. And I preach this all the time, which is, you just decide what behavior is acceptable to you. And then you judge people based on those expectations you've set, regardless of what their politics is. And that's the only way that you'll ever get out of finding yourself caught in a moment of hypocrisy. Cheryl, discernment is a characteristic really missing in our culture, as evidenced by the president's post and Jay Inslee's post, of course.
From Miranda. It was
My
nice of
sister
him
Miranda?
to include everyone in his Easter post.
Yeah.
At least he included
literally everyone.
Everyone,
even the radical left lunatics. Lou, no, it doesn't bother me, but this pettiness I would like to see go away. Be the bigger person. He does other great things, but always overshadowed by the mean tweets. And look, some of the tweets I now find funny. Some of the tweets, had he posted that without the Easter tie, I would have been like, ha. I know, I agree with his sentiment, but it's funny. Like, it's Easter, families are coming together. And then Jay Inslee. Jay's been all over cable news. It's like he's found a new career for himself.
More active than he was when he was governor.
Literally, more active than he was as he was governor. That's sad. All right, where am I going to next? Okay, we'll get to comments here coming up in a moment. First, with all the up, down in the stock market, probably time to get a second opinion on your retirement portfolio. Well, our friend Zach Abraham with Bulwark Capital can help you out with that. That's what they specialize in, is handling retirement portfolios in a moment like this. They specialize in managing risk. And look, for most things, getting a second opinion is always smart. It's the same thing when it comes to the strategy of your retirement portfolio. Zach Abraham, he's the Chief Investment Officer at Bulwark Capital, offers that second opinion with a free Know Your Risk portfolio review. So think about your risk management strategy. Do you even know what it is right now? Are you confident in the composition of your portfolio for 2025? I'll tell you what, if you've lost a lot in the last month, your portfolio could probably use a second look. So Bulwark Capital will do a full reveal of how they're always looking for opportunities to lower risk, lower cost, give your retirement as much upside as possible. They'll take you through, they'll do a review of your portfolio, give you some thoughts on it. And at the end of the day, if it's only a second opinion, no commitment whatsoever, then you leave feeling maybe good about your current portfolio. So you only get one retirement, get a second opinion on your portfolio's efficiency. Schedule your free risk review now at knowyourriskradio.com. Don't put it off. That's knowyourriskradio.com. Okay, let's get to some viewer comments, shall we? John Ross, today is my birthday. I'm 36, so that's good news. We're the same age. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear John Ross. Happy birthday to you. Dave Gillane, the left will continue to put criminals ahead of victims and illegals before citizens. That's what they're doing. They do it all the time. They do it at the state level. They do it when it comes to criminals who are from our state, who are legal citizens, and they do it for criminals who are illegal aliens as well. Gary Albans, those who aided in the release of the felons need to be arrested and prosecuted for the crimes the felons committed. And at some point, it's like, who's accountable for these things? You know, the child rapist who gets out of jail, gets deported, comes back in and gets a driver's license and gets to just fold back into our society. If he commits new crimes, who's responsible for him? Beth Lindenen, why does everyone continue to ignore the Republican budget that had no cuts and no new taxes? That proves there is another option. We mentioned it, but it means nothing. I hate to say that. I mean, we mentioned it, but it means nothing. Republicans can have the best, and often do, the best proposals, the best policy ideas, but it means nothing because they are in the minority and it's not even close. So right now, our options are hope Bob Ferguson does the right thing or hope legislative Democrats do the right thing. And I hate to be like that, but that elections have consequences, and that's who people have put in power in Olympia. Susan Haney, nothing in our Constitution that says we have to provide services for these people. If we stop feeding them, they will ask for treatment. Is that in regards to the homeless people, or you think the illegals?
That's a Spokane story.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, they're going to continue to give them free, not just food. I mean, I'm in favor of feeding people. There's nonprofits. If they want to feed people and provide the poor hot meals, by all means. It's the bump kits, you know, the harm reduction kits that are being paid for with our tax money. So we give them the tools they need to continue to live in filth and squalor and kill themselves. Unreal. David, remember a judge today was a lawyer yesterday, and he may have gotten into it for the money, not to be legal. Yeah, it's all ideological at this point. They're political appointees. They start as political appointees, and it shows. Shirley, I'm a Coug, and while relieved the two men charged with assault are no longer employed by WSU, I am disappointed, as I have expressed to the WSU president, that it took them so long to release a statement regarding this. I agree with you. No one has the right to assault someone because they don't like their political beliefs. It's weird. It is that it stayed off the radar. People didn't know about this happening for a couple months. And only once it felt like one of the guys was going to get his job back, the guy who was assaulted is like, well, I'm going to call Jonathan Cho and I'm going to get news out about this. So why? I missed you ladies last week, but I must say I had the most peaceful, blissfully unaware week of politics. The only anxiety I had was when I pondered whether to put my son through counseling and spectrum evaluation. It does sound anxiety-inducing. I'm still leaning no on those as the parental rights are being taken away. Yeah, we missed you guys too. Nicole, you had a good vacation.
Yeah, it was great. It wasn't it wasn't as sunny as I was hoping it was going to be in Fiji.
Fiji, I always get them confused.
Yeah,
Fiji.
So I was told it was the end of the rainy season, but if it rains, like it just kind of comes in and comes out.
Yeah.
And it came in and hung out.
Okay,
but we did take some boats out to go find the sun, so I was able to find the sun. My son, I went on a dolphin watching tour. It was a whole day, and the dolphins always show up, but they don't show up for Nicole.
Oh, no.
No dolphins. But, you know what, like we found the sun, so that was fun. And then I came home sick because, of course, a 10.5-hour flight. I don't know why my immune system is so weak these days or something. But it really was fun, and I had a great time with a couple friends, and I went, and the Fijian people are just the nicest people on earth. They're so sweet. They are just so sweet.
Yeah,
so
I saw a bunch of pictures. It looked fun.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah, I'll have to tell some stories tomorrow. Maybe I'll share some pictures. My husband got bit by a sea lion.
It's the best story and the best picture.
My husband, we went fishing. I'll tell you the story tomorrow.
Okay.
Because maybe I'll have a picture. We have it on camera. He got bit by a sea lion, and he's real proud of himself. He's like, I survived. He thinks he's a survivor now.
I feel like nature's turned against you.
It could have been a lot worse, honestly. He got a little abrasion, but overall, but it's a good story to tell. So I'll get some pictures, and I'll share the story tomorrow. But we had a good time down in Cabo, and it really, like, this whole immigration debate. I thought about it a lot while I was down there in Mexico, right? And I feel in a lot of ways the same way about immigration as I did, years ago when I was a little more liberal. You feel for people, and you're down there, and we had to take a different route back to the airport, not like through town in the main sort of tourist area, because there was a road closure, and we went through some really impoverished areas. And I mean, poverty that you don't see in the United States. There's poor people in the United States, but not like that. And you understand like why people would go to such great lengths to come to our country, and why they might feel inclined to bring their kids here on these long journeys and treacherous and use the cartel and all these things. And so I feel for those people. I have a lot of empathy, and I want them to have a better life, and I want our legal immigration system to be improved so people can come here, so they can work, so they can pay taxes. But we're not at that place right now. And so, yeah, I was thinking a lot about the immigration debate while I was down there, but just feeling bad for people isn't enough to justify what's been happening. But anyway, yeah.
Wild.
Thoughtful thoughts from Brandi.
It is crazy
today.
because in Fiji, it's also very... it's a very poor country, and all the locals there live in pretty wild, places we would never imagine people live and be happy and then come to work at these like nice fancy resorts and things like that. But again, they don't have a crime that we have over here. They don't have, like, there are people that really they just seem to make the most out of what they have, and they live and help and work, help each other, and it's a sense of community there, and they're just so sweet, like so nice. So
yeah,
it's a different feeling there than it is in Mexico, because I've also been there, obviously. But
it's good to get out of your bubble now and then, and just to be exposed to other things happening around the world and in places that they do have, just to see that poverty, to see that struggle, but also to see people who have far less than we'll ever have be far more grateful for it than we ever are. And you kind of think about some of the things you consider problems in your life, and you're like, well, that's not really a big deal. You just leave, I think, more grateful and also more empathetic. So I think what I mean to say by all this is we can keep our empathy for people, but still have strong opinions about the immigration debate and about what's going on and about wanting to hold criminals accountable and not coddle people who came in illegally and break our laws. So just interesting. But I'll show you the sea lion attack pictures tomorrow. I just have to ask my husband if he's okay with it first. And I didn't ask him, or I would have shown you on the show today. So, all right. And with that, let's get to our closing sanity check. All right, speaking of empathy, there's empathy for illegal aliens, and then there's this, out of Maine.
If you see ICE disappearing people in the streets, will you get in the way? Yes! If you are charged with enforcing any part of the president's unlawful executive orders, will you resist? Yes! If your neighbor needs a place to hide, will you hide them? Yes!
No.
And right now, as the Maine legislature is trying to scapegoat transgender student athletes bargaining long-held civil rights away, in hopes that it will save Maine's federal funding, will you show up for them and say that our human rights aren't for sale?
No. Yeah, there's having sympathy for the plight of people from other countries who want to build a better life here. And then there's just interfering in federal immigration enforcement actions, and I hope people who do go to federal prison. That has been our closing sanity check. That has been today's episode of Undivided. Missed every single one of you. If you haven't watched it already, go watch our special report, Sanctuary. We also released the extended version of our interview with Congressman Adam Smith, and we will also be releasing an extended version of our interview with Acting Special Agent in Charge Matthew Murphy of Homeland Security Investigations here in Seattle. So lots of goodies to come there, and share it. More people who see it, the better. Oh gosh, what else? If you haven't subscribed to support our show already, I just don't know why. I mean, what else could you ask for? $5 a month? UndividedPod.com, UndividedPod.com, and for a couple weeks we still have that promo going. If you're a member of the military, a veteran, or a first responder, you can get 30% off your first year of Undivided by using the promo code USA. USA. Okay, see you back here tomorrow at noon.